it wasn't just to avoid writing a book. It was the Ustad's deep-seated conviction that his speech, his memory, his life and soul, all was situated in the Sarod. He often described his Sarod as his self. This Ustad, however, at times spoke lyrically and majestically about his relationship with his music, with the world. This unique life of Ustad Ali Akbar Khan is one of a missionary spreading music to distant corners of the earth.
This is the house, now deemed an ashram, where I grew up learning music at the feet of my father, the great Ustad Alauddin Khan Sahib. This is the house at Mehar in Madhya Pradesh, where my father was the court musician for the Maharaja of the princely state. My father, being a court musician, was only a formality. The Maharaja, an ardent lover of music, actually became his disciple and constructed a soundproof room where he could learn peacefully from the Ustad. Soon enough, the relationship developed into a father-son relationship between the Ustad and the young Maharaja. Mehar is my Vrindavan, where I played, learned, and grew to accept music as my way of life. It was a very simple abode in my boyhood days, virtually a hermit's hut, where all you saw or heard had something to do with music. Learning and teaching music took all the time of the day and even parts of the night. It was truly my second birthplace. I lived my boyhood in the rooms here. Every morning brought a new sense of Bhairavi. Midday brought a feel of some form of sarang, and dusk fell with a sense of behag or hem behag, my father's own creation, or jhinjhoti. This is my father's room. It has the look and ambience of a temple where different religions sat side by side. Baba, as he was lovingly called by all and sundry, was a devout Muslim who also worshipped the Hindu goddess Kali and Saraswati, the goddess of learning and music, and Krishna, who dominates a great amount of northern Indian classical music. Baba prayed to his gods in the language of music and taught us the same. Asked by different people at different times, I have described music as the religion of my family. My family, of course, is a huge and extended one. The students of Baba had daily sessions of learning at his feet. They would come with various instruments of beat and melody and were taught in the time-honored discipline of raga music. In the course of time, Baba formed his own band of musicians with the local boys of Meher and named it the Meher Band. Pandit Ravi Shankar, then only a dancer with the troupe of his world-famous elder brother Uday Shankar, came to learn sitar from my father in the mid-30s. And soon, Ravi and I struck a beautiful relationship of love and respect. We performed at the feet of Baba and gradually developed our famous and glorious Jugal Bandi. My sister Annapurna was another formidable disciple of my father. She had magic fingers and a magical memory, learning everything that was taught to her. My son Ashish also grew up under the tutelage of my father. At one time, the brilliant Bengali Nikhil Bandopadhyay came as the disciple of Baba. Later became my disciple too. With him I formed a Jugalbandi partnership at a later time.
The great scientist Sir Isaac Newton had said sometime in his old age that he had only been playing with a few pebbles on the beach, while the vast ocean of knowledge lay mysterious and unexplored in front of him. Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, probably he would also have used the image of the sea, on the beach of which limitless expanse of water he had played with some elements of melody, harmony and rhythm. Some ragas and some talas, and perhaps some moments of musical ecstasy. Indeed, Khan Sahab had a very personal way of describing music. Like when he said,
Music, what my father felt and what I'm feeling, because it is only shorter route to feel the God. And music, good music, we call this kind of music, it's not for entertainment. It's for your soul, and through that you can reach to God. I can feel it, and also it's inside you such a beautiful thing create that you never want to harm anyone. And you know how to give your love to others, your friends, your family, your nation, everything. So that all kind of egos, anger, jealousy, all these things you to that music
while teaching his class much later in life, Khan Sahab had a beautiful exhortation for the students.
If you practice for 10 years, you may begin to please yourself. After 20 years, you may become a performer and please the audience. After 30 years, you may please even your guru. But you must practice for many more years before you finally become true artist. Then you may please even God.
But Khan Sahab, in his long illustrious career, found his own self the most difficult taskmaster. Even after great performances, he would humbly state,
Father used to love me like anything, but he never showed me that kind of thing. And my whole life, I never seen his eyes. Sometimes nowadays I can see his picture, but as long as he was alive, I remember very well that my head is always down, and the only thing you can answer is yes. Even you can't say no. So he never allowed me to talk. Even sometimes I like to talk with my sister or mother, but that is also very limit. But through music all the time, we have a kind of like a talk, but no any other language, how are you, what you need, anything, nothing.
If you liked it, it's fine. I am happy. Good music happens. And if you're playing for years and years, you are likely to play a few good things now and then.
This is what Khan Sahab was like. Ever so humble, ever unperturbed by even the highest praise. And to the question, what is good music? He replied with the calm beauty of a saint.
I play for myself. If I like my music, you will like it. If I do not, you will not.
Incidentally and thankfully, is replete with the recorded music of the Ustad. Each and every disc of his bears his unmistakable signature. The warmth, the charm, and the magic is ever so present in his recorded music, so much so that to make a kind of format for anyone who wants to listen and learn from the Ustad Ali Akbar Khan. Let us now observe the maestro in a serene mood of alap, savoring every bit of the melody emanating from his Sarod.
There have been great tabla artists in my life, with whom I, in course of time, produced a kinship of art and love. I did my first recital on All India Radio Bombay in 1938 and was accompanied by the tabla maestro Allah Rakha. Years later, I have also often played with his supremely gifted son, Zakir Hussain. Since that first recital with Allah Rakha, I have played with some of the exquisite tabla performers of India. The list is almost endless, but here are 3 performances with Swapan Chaudhary, Kishan Maharaj, and Shankar Ghosh, came from 3 different phases of my life.
And then 65, ACA brought here. Then I opened my college because all this, I found that all the students, they want to learn more. And to take so many students to India is to bring myself alone. It's a more easier way.
Much of my time in California is taken up by my classes for students of different stages and accomplishments. Like playing to the audience, instructing students is also a part of my riyaz.
The way he taught at our music school and taught me privately in my life, he always said when we're learning a raga that yes, you have all the notes are there and the ascending, descending, the scale is there, the structure is there, but don't worry about the notes, worry about the feeling behind the notes. And he always showed that in his playing. Whenever he played even just his first note of a concert or recording, you can tell that it's my father immediately. The feeling that you get, it's so much emotion and peace at the same time. The depth of one single note is, I think, what makes my father as incredible as he is, like the ocean, that kind of depth. And so through learning from him for my whole life, whenever he would teach me, he would say, follow my hands, follow the feeling, bring out the feeling that the notes need to express. Because you can play many notes, you can play very fast, you can play all kinds of things, but without that feeling, then there's no music. So the music needs to, that's what's beautiful about Indian classical music and also music of other cultures also, is when you can feel from the musician just how much beauty, how much all the emotions are, found within these one stroke, one passage. You can find the peace and happiness and detachment, joy, wonder, all these kind of feelings that come out. So my father was king of that. He was emperor. That's why his father gave him that title of Swara Samrat. He really was the emperor of melody.
I have often been asked about my riyaz these days, and I have always answered that my 18-hour practice at Meher was a phase in my development. I am still a student of music, but my training pattern has changed. I also learn by teaching and playing to the audience. And both of these add to the enjoyment of my life. I am always open to sharing my knowledge and my enjoyment. As I have once been on record, music is the only thing that you can share with 1,000,000 people, and you don't lose, you gain. It helps you to get energy and to live long, because when your soul is very happy, then you don't want to die.
Every performance of the Ustad began with an elaborate preparation called tuning. To make every note merge into a spectrum of colors, Khan Sahab took every pain to tune his strings, and the body of the Sarod literally became an extension of his mind and hands. The instrument then reproduced scintillating details. The music and the instrument was one. Besides teaching and playing, Khan Sahab has always found time to exercise his talent for composition.
I think this project is very special because, first of all, these compositions what Khan Sahab's father learned from many different maestros, and these compositions nowadays is getting obsolete and getting lost.
A very old traditional style of classical music which my father learned, and this kind of composition started from time of Mrinal Sen, who is the court musician of Emperor Akbar in 16th century. And this kind of composition we only teach to blood relation.
Well, Khan Sahab and Ashaji, they had a long relationship from 1950s. At that time, Khan Sahab was in Bombay, and he was composing music for the film. And in many films, Khan Sahab chooses Ashaji to sing his compositions.
I know classical music from my childhood, and this project is very important for me because until now I am film singer. And now I will be classical singer. That's very important for me.
Even Indians, they are very scared of classical music. But if they hear this kind of thing, then they will get the idea the classical music was more sweeter than any lighter music.
Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, he called me. And I'm very lucky I'm chosen for this project. And he tried Ganda. This Ganda means he's my guru and my father.
Asha now she become my daughter. And this kind of composition need a feeling, not only art. That's why I thought she's the right person.
Tell you frankly, we don't get to hear this kind of composition. And if you hear that, it takes you to somewhere else. Of course, I'm not younger generation, but I feel fortunate that at least the younger generation will listen to this music later on. My son, my grandchildren, they will listen. So this music will be, I think this music will survive.
I cried so many times because he's teaching me music. It's my great, I can't say, मैंने कुछ अच्छा किया था. I have done something good.
Music is connected, we say, Nad Brahma. The sound is next to God. What is that proof of that? Because you can't see the God. And also you can't see the sound. But when that sound touches your soul, then you feel something.
Whether it be playing with his Sarod to Yvette Mimieux's recitation of Baudelaire's poetry, or for the films of Chetan Anand, James Ivory, Topun Sinha, Bernardo Bertolucci, Satyajit Ray, and Ritwik Ghatak. In Khudi To Pashan, Khan Sahab uses the incomparable voice of Ustad Amir Khan, not for a khayal, but for a thungri. For Ritwik Ghatak's Ojantrik, he produced simply mechanical sounds of a motor garage to produce the ambience of the scene. Among his compositions within the structure of the Indian raga are some of the most beautiful pieces that will outlive this century and many to follow. To name a few, Chandranandan, Madhumalti, Gauri Manjari, and Alamgiri. The last raga he composed as a tribute to his father, who was also known as Alamgir. And among the great renditions that the Ustad had delivered for his countless fans, we can name a few: Shri, Darbari, Ahir Bhairav, Yaman, Durgeshwari, Bhairavi, and of course, his ever so popular Hem Behag and Zila Kafi.
Well, Khan Sahib had, he composed so many different ragas, and all the ragas, whatever he created was great. But out of all these things, all those ragas, Chandranandan was one of the highlighted ragas. But it was very funny. There was a story behind it, how Chandranandan came into the picture. At that time, it was recorded in Bombay. The first album was 3 minutes to record. So the producer came to him, HMB producer, and said that Khan Sahab, just play something new. So Khan Sahab said, something new? What do you mean something new? Well, yes, something new which is not, general ragas, something abnormal, something. Khan Sahab said, okay. And I heard this story from Nikhil Banerjee, because Nikhil Banerjee was playing Tanpura in that recording. So Khan Sahab played, 3 minutes was over, and when that came, and then the producer said, what will be the name of the ragas? Khan Sahab said, oh boy, I need some time to think about it. Okay, 3 days, after 3 days, then he said, well, that night was full moon. So that's how the name came as Chandranandan. And then when Chandranandan came into the market, it was hotcake. So wherever Khan Sahab used to go, everybody was shouting, Khan Sahab play Chandranandan. But he forgot what he did. So Khan Sahab had to buy his own record from the store and listen to Chandranandan and figure it out, what is it. He studied. Then he started playing Chandranandan outside.
Thus spoke Yehudi Menuhin on Ali Akbar Khan, an absolute genius, the greatest musician in the world. And many have considered him India's Johann Sebastian Bach. And it is rather amusing that when Ali Akbar Khan first received the title Ustad at a relatively young age, his father merely laughed. But later, when the patriarch was 100 years old, he told his son that he was very proud of him. I'm so pleased with your work in music that I'll do something which is very rare. As your guru and father, I'm giving you a title, Swara Samrat, the Emperor of Melody.
Sometimes people ask me, how should we prepare ourselves to hear this music? I always say, don't prepare anything, just come and relax. The music will tell you what to do.
Ustad Alauddin Khan spent a certain period of time at Shantiniketan as guru of the music students there. The poet Rabindranath Tagore had a deep respect for his unrivaled teacher and guardian of musical knowledge. In the 90s, his son, Ustad Ali Akbar, stayed at Shantiniketan as visiting professor and taught the students. Ironically, what brought him there was an endowment in the name of his great disciple, Nikhil Bandhopadhyay. In the morning, he would teach, and in the evening, he played. He drew a deep breath of satisfaction at being able to return to Gurudev Rabindranath's abode of peace.
The day is no more, the shadow is upon the earth. It is time that I go to the stream to fill my pitcher. The evening air is eager with the sad music of the water. Ah, it calls me out into the dusk. In the lonely lane, there is no passerby. The wind is up. The ripples are rampant in the river. I know not if I shall come back home. I know not whom I shall chance to meet. There at the fording, in the little boat, the unknown man plays upon his lute.
The residents of the Ustad at Maihar now wear an empty, vacant look. The Ustad's urge to return to his Vrindavan could not materialize. On 18th June 2009, he breathed his last in San Rafael. But his music continues to bring his soul, his heart, his dreams back to where it all started from, his very own Vrindavan.
Delineating a raga is like making a painting with the colors of melody on the canvas of the heart. When I play, for instance, a raga like Vrindavani Sarang, am I not transported spiritually to the Vrindavan of Radha and Krishna? I am not only playing a few notes then, I am also playing with the colors of the spectrum. The colors that gradually mix and remix into millions and millions of hues. And all those colors paint in my mind and heart an image probably like this.